Welcome back everybody to BeamNG.drive, and today we're looking at the Ibishu Kashira. Now this was requested by CJ Lakel, I hope I'm saying your name right, and yeah, this is more specifically the 2.5 litre TDDX. So it's got a 2.5 litre turbo diesel inline 4, producing 138 horsepower and 207 pounds-feet of torque. Surprisingly lightweight for a minivan at 3,274 pounds. It's front wheel drive, made between 1995 and 2001, and can do 0 to 60 in 10.4 seconds, 0 to 127 seconds, and going to a top speed of 131 miles an hour. So yeah, not spectacularly quick, but considering it is a minivan, it's got a diesel, it could have been a hell of a lot slower. So yeah, but being front wheel drive, it could well be susceptible to an easy amount of damage at the front. So yeah, we'll have to see. But obviously, being a minivan, the more crucial point is of how safe it is, never mind how tough it is. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what it can do in that regard. Yeah, we're going to torture it a little bit on the grid map and see what it can deal with. Bumps, jumps, and the like. So let's get a bit more of a run up. There goes a bumper. Let's see what we can do in terms of suspension, which usually is the big killer on this on these reviews now that the map has been changed. Although we are pulling quite severely to the left. Just getting to this suspension area is sometimes tough enough. It's probably an easier way, but you know, time and all that. Come on. See, this is another disadvantage of front wheel drive. It gets stuck easily on ledges. Not that that's something that a lot of people will have to deal with, but you know. Right. Let's get the camera twisted around. Right. It's got plenty of suspension brutal tests to try out. Especially since one of the front wheels at least looks to have been a little bit on the wobbly side. Potholes. What are these going to do? Anything? A little bit of judder in there, but nothing major, thankfully. Dealing with everything okay so far, apart from obviously the pulling to the left. Being a diesel, it means it's got more weight up front than a normal petrol engine would, so the suspension's not just dealing with obviously the bumps and jumps and all that lot, but obviously with extra weight up front. I don't think we're putting it through enough pain, really, to be honest, at the moment. I think we're giving it a bit of an easy ride. Let's see what we can do on this. Woo, woo, woo. That judded it around a fair bit, but it handled that. Not enjoying this. Wait. Then again, what car would? Already done this. Let's go for this one instead. Sounds a little bit broken at the moment. Well, there goes another hubcap. Let's take stock of the damage so far. Yeah, the suspension definitely looks lower front. There goes another hubcap and another hubcap. We've lost all of our hubcaps. We've lost all of our protection. How can this car ever handle anything anymore? I don't know. Oh, there goes the exhaust. It's dragging now, although we haven't technically completely lost it. It's fair to say that the rear suspension is better than the front suspension, but that's no surprise. Lack of weight over that end, after all. Oh dear. Oh, we've rolled. And we've got the radiator leaking now, so if the car doesn't brake with the wheels or drive line, then overheating will get this. But it's far tougher than I was expecting it to be honest. I was expecting the front wheel drive aspect to be a weakness, but it seems to be a strength in some regards. So they don't have a long drive line from the front to the rear that you'd have to worry about. There goes the exhaust. The fact it's a diesel engine might well make it last a lot longer in terms of overheating than you'd expect, because diesels are extremely low revving. Yeah, this is tough. There's no doubt about that. Hopefully that means it's going to stand it in good stead for when we stop, you know, crashing it into walls and other cars. Most cars have not survived this, for instance. The only thing that's stopping this is the fact that it's now, you know, stuck. It's not the fact that the car's bad. Yeah, we are gradually getting hotter. This does not want to die. It's got to get the kids to school. Can't believe it, but it looks like overheating is the thing that's actually going to kill a car on the grid map, which I don't think has happened before. How is this thing still going? Well, I have to say I'm impressed. The fact that we're slamming it on the front constantly and it's still not doing anything to it whatsoever means that this is incredibly tough up front. I don't think the rear has taken any wheel damage at all. We've smacked the engine, we've smacked the driveline constantly and nothing's happening to it. The only thing that's slowed us down is the overheating, which is now killing the engine slowly. The driveline, most of the steering is still fine. Oh, there goes the engine. So yeah, overheating is what's killed this, and not, you know, the massive amount of punishment that we've dished out to it. So yeah, massively surprised. So that stands it in good stead for rollover tests, the explosions that are going to be created from the crash hard barrels, and then obviously the cinder block wall. So yeah, I'm expecting good things from it here, because it's undoubtedly passed the torture of the grid map. So let's see what happens here. Now I'm just hoping that the roof will hold up, because that would be a failure if it didn't. But obviously it would also be a failure if it couldn't make all 3 rollovers. Another test we'll have to look into as well is whether or not those rear doors can still slide open. Because if you have a crash and you've got kids in the back, the last thing you want to do is having to get them out through the front doors, because the rear sliding doors do not open. Oh, big hit there on the rear. One thing I don't like about the recent update is that cars get starved of oil increasingly incredibly quickly, which to me doesn't seem realistic, but that's just the way the developers have done it. It's still in early access technically, so oh dear. Well, that's a failure. We just set off and it immediately fell off. Well, clearly it had been weakened by rolling over, but that is technically a failure, even though overall the roof held up. So yeah, it can deal with all of the punishment of the grid map, all the suspension testing, the couple of jumps that we dished out on it, and yet it can't deal with one rollover without the wheel popping off, which is unfortunate. So yeah, let's get to the crash hard barrels and see if it can deal with a couple of explosions. Let's reload it here. Probably not going to be going particularly quick here. We'll be doing more than 60 at least, just about. Dealt with the explosion reasonably well. I'm surprised the rear door has popped open though. There goes both front wheels. So it's not going to be driving away from this, but is it going to survive it in terms of passenger safety? I say it has, to be honest. Yeah, I'm satisfied with that, to be honest. Dealt with that a fair bit better than the rollover test, purely because even though obviously it's lost both of its front wheels, which kind of to be expected considering the massive explosion, the rest of the car stood up fairly well. So yeah, impressed with that. Right, let's see if we can deal with the cinder block wall. And the big test with this is the roof going to hold up, is the front windscreen going to hold up, is the car as a whole going to hold up? And looks like it. There was quite a bit of wobble with the roof there though, when it came into contact with the wall. But I'm satisfied with that, and the door's still open at the rear as well. I wasn't expecting that with the rollover test or the explosive barrels, but the fact that it's held, they've managed to still open with this is a good indicator of what's going to happen when we get to the crash hall next, where we are going to be doing 3 small overlap crash tests at 30, 40 and 60 miles an hour. So let's get there and see what happens there. Right, so here we are at the crash hall, so let's see what happens at 30 miles an hour for a small overlap crash test. I imagine it will do well here. We have had the likes of the Grand Marshal do particularly well, which is from the same kind of period as this, so I'm anticipating this minivan to do just as well. See if this family vehicle can deal with this. Perfect. The front has taken the damage, slowed the car down enough, and therefore not passed any of the G-forces or subsequent momentum into the rest of the car. I mean, you can see where the damage has stopped and started. So yeah, that is yeah, impressive. That is perfect example of a effective crumple zone there, and predictably the rear door's open still. So yeah, let's see what happens at 40. I imagine it will do just as well here. Perfecto. Yes, the window screen, the side window has broken on the passenger side. But actually, you can tell that the overall shape of the car hasn't changed purely because the front windscreen has not cracked, which is again highly unusual, especially for an older car like this. So that is impressive. And the rear door still open perfectly, again showing that the rest of the car has not deformed. So yeah, massively impressed again with that, despite all of the damage. And yeah, even despite that damage, the rest of the car is holding up well in terms of engineering wise as well, because yes, the radiator's gone, but the car still drives, it's still got its front wheels. So yeah, really impressed by this. So let's see what happens at the ultimate 60 miles an hour. Now, we've seen massive differences between 40 and 60 in other cars before, so is this going to be the same case for this? We'll have to see. Now, obviously 60 miles an hour is quite an extreme speed to be testing at. Oh, yeah. Ignore that. Did not get quite lined up right. Right, let's see what happens. Oh dear. Yeah, definitely a big difference between 60 and 40. The steering wheel is shot down into the driver's lap, which is not a good sign whatsoever. So yeah, driver would not be likely to get away with that, but the doors on the rear still work, which obviously means helping the kids get out, or anyone really in the rear. But that, yeah, is a bit devastating. I'm going to give it one more shot though, just because I think we were slightly too far to the right there. So let's just give it one more go. I just want to be fair. Or slightly too, yeah, too far to the right. I think we weren't quite on the right amount of overlap there. Let's give it one more go, let's see what happens. Yeah. It's pretty much the same there. Yeah, we were right. Though this time, weirdly, the doors, yeah, they're still open, even though the rear left one looks particularly damaged. So yeah, nonetheless, let's get to the highway and see what happens against two similar sized vehicles and one that really isn't. So here we are at the highway, and yeah, we're going to be going up against ETK I series first, which is pretty much the same weight as this, and it's also a more of a family car than so many vehicles on this game. Again, we'll be going at 60 miles an hour against one another. Oh dear, I mistimed that completely. I do apologise. This minivan does like to spear off to the right when accelerating, and this one likes to spear off to the right as well. It's probably a Japanese thing. Alright. It's gonna happen. Yeah, pretty much perfect from the minivan there. ETK though speared its roof right upwards. But we're not really interested in that, we're interested in what's happened to the minivan. And yeah, the minivan still works. So does ETK though, to be fair, but again, not interested in that. So do the doors on this still open? Yes, they do. And yeah, overall, I think it got away with that. Obviously, 60 mile an hour impact is not going to be a walk in the park. It would definitely injure people, but I feel like with airbags, seatbelts, and everything else, it would be yeah, survivable, if not, you know, injure-free. So let's see what happens with another similarly weighted vehicle. Nope. It's not actually many cars that weigh around 3,200 pounds, weirdly enough. Well, this is slightly heavier by about 22 pounds, so I think that's a good extra on top of what the ETK weighed, because that was about 40 pounds less. So let's see what happens here. Obviously the hopper is a little bit taller in terms of ride height and roof height probably as well. But it also only weighs a couple 20 pounds or so heavier. Oh. Yeah, I think we survived that. The roof has bent a little bit at the rear, which might well stop those doors opening. But the hopper has been pretty decimated there. Yeah, the hopper's definitely the one that's taken the most damage there. But we seem to have gotten away with that fine. Yep, doors are still opening. No real movement with the steering wheel. Yeah, the door on the driver's side has crumpled quite a lot. But that's pretty much the main damage there, really. The car even still moves. Which is the case for the hopper? Nope, because the chassis has bent entirely downwards. Right, let's give it the ultimate test. And see if we can deal with something far heavier. I think we should go for the ETK 1300 series, because even though it's only about 1,200 pounds heavier thereabouts, it's still a modern, you know, safe SUV, which kind of killed off the minivan overall. So it's kind of a case of old school meets new school. So let's see what happens. Oh dear, I did not slow that down at all. Again, I apologise, just the way things go sometimes, you press the wrong button. Perfect line up there. Well, I have to say I'm impressed. To deal with a car that's 1,200 pounds heavier than you are, and barely look any different to, you know, lighter cars or only ever so slightly heavier cars, is mightily impressive. Yes, we are not going to be driving anywhere in this scenario, because we've lost the front wheel, but yeah, that is pretty damn good. Obviously this is fine, even though everything's pretty much broken. But yeah, that is mightily impressive. So yeah, overall I am massively surprised by the Kashira. I assumed because it was quite old that it would be pretty useless, but given the stuff we've put it through, it survived the grid map, it survived the explosive barrels and the cinder block wall, didn't survive the rollover sled, surprisingly, but that's purely down to the wheel that fell off. And then survived the 30 and 40 mile an hour small overlap crash test. Did not survive the 60 mile an hour, but then again that is quite an extreme test, which very few have actually survived on this review series. And then it survived all 3 of these highway crash tests perfectly well as well. So yeah, overall flying colours with this. Only 2 failures, and even then one of them was only a failure because of a wheel, not necessarily because of the safety, and another one was quite extreme. So yeah, massively surprised by this, so thank you for the recommendation. And yeah, if you've got any more cars that you'd like to recommend that we haven't done so far, then yeah, give us a shout, because I will try them out, especially if they're as good as this. Nonetheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you with the next one. Bye.